All right, let's take a trip way, way back. I'm not just talking about the beginning of history. I mean the beginning of the idea of living together. We're going to explore a place that basically drew the blueprint for our world, ancient Mesopotamia.
Just try to picture it for a second. A world with no countries, no borders, no written history at all. It's almost impossible, right? Well, that's where our story starts. In a land carved out by two mighty rivers where something totally new was about to bubble up.
So, if you really want to get how civilization kicked off, you've got to start with the land. Seriously, in this story, geography wasn't just important, it was everything.
Yeah, the name Mesopotamia actually comes from the ancient Greeks. It just means the land between the rivers. And you know what? They weren't kidding. The Tigris and the Euphrates, these two rivers created this amazing green oasis in the middle of a really harsh, dry part of the world. It was basically the perfect incubator for, well, for civilization itself.
And look, this amazing land didn't just let people scrape by. Oh no, it let them thrive. And all that thriving, it sparked one of the biggest, most game-changing inventions in the story of humanity.
It all happened like a set of dominoes falling. First, the rivers give you amazing soil. That means you get a surplus of food, way more than you need just to survive. And that's huge, because for the first time ever, not everyone had to be a farmer. Suddenly you could be a builder, or a priest, or a craftsman. This whole new way of organizing people made it possible to build something brand new on a scale nobody had ever dreamed of, the city. And the very first big one, that was Uruk.
Uruk? I mean, this place was a complete game changer. At its height, you're talking about more than 50,000 people. Now I know, that might sound like a small town to us today, but think about it. 5,000 years ago, that was like a mega city from the future. It was a metropolis on a scale that was just unimaginable. Nobody had ever seen anything like it.
Okay, so you've got this amazing new city. But with it comes a whole new set of headaches. How on earth do you manage all those people, all their stuff, all their arguments? They had to invent, from scratch, a way to create order out of all that chaos. That was the big question, right? Because when you have tens of thousands of people crammed together, you can't just rely on memory or he said, she said. It just doesn't work. You need systems, you need tools. And the solutions they dreamed up, well, they would literally change the course of human history.
So what's solution number one? Believe it or not, it was data management. What you're looking at is cuneiform, one of the earliest forms of writing. And get this, it wasn't invented for epic poems or love letters. Nope, it was invented for accounting. Super practical. Scribes would press these little wedge-shaped marks into clay to track grain and animals and business deals. It was, and I'm not exaggerating, the world's first spreadsheet. And really, this just shows you that some problems never go away. Back then, it was cuneiform on clay tablets. Today, it's digital data on servers. The technology is worlds apart, but the basic job is exactly the same, keeping track of all the complicated stuff that makes a society run. The tools change, but that fundamental need for organization, that's timeless.
But, you know, managing stuff was only half the battle. What about managing people? I mean, it's one thing to count your bushels of grain. It's another thing entirely when someone steals that grain or when two people are fighting over a piece of land. That was the real challenge.
And the answer came from a Babylonian king named Hammurabi. His code of Hammurabi was, well, it was absolutely revolutionary. Not just for what the laws said, but for how they were presented. He had them carved into giant stone pillars and placed in public for everyone to see. The punishments? Yeah, they could be pretty brutal. But the truly mind-blowing idea here was that for the first time, society was governed by a set of consistent, written laws, not just whatever the king felt like that day.
So they've figured out how to manage food and how to manage each other. But life isn't just about logistics, right? These ancient people were also wrestling with the same huge questions we do. You know, why are we here? What's the point of all this? What's our place in the grand scheme of things? And for them, life was so uncertain. Those rivers that gave them everything, they could also wipe it all away in a devastating flood. So it's no surprise they saw the hands of powerful, totally unpredictable gods in everything that happened. They really felt like they were just pawns in a cosmic game, completely at the mercy of these divine forces. So, how do you even begin to connect with gods that powerful? Well, you build something just as massive. They built these incredible temples called ziggurats. And these weren't just buildings. Think of them as man-made mountains, a literal stairway to the heavens.
trying to build a bridge across that huge, scary gap between the world of humans and the realm of the gods. And it's out of this spiritual world, this mix of fear and wonder and awe, that one of humanity's first great stories emerges, the Epic of Gilgamesh. And trust me, this is so much more than just an old adventure story. It's one of our earliest attempts to figure out what it even means to be human.
So the hero, Gilgamesh, he's totally shattered when his best friend dies, and he goes on this epic, desperate quest to find the secret to eternal life. But here's the thing, he fails. And the lesson he learns is something that hits just as hard today as it did back then. You can't live forever, but your actions, the things you do, the legacy you build, that's how you find meaning. That's a kind of immortality.
So, this amazing civilization, what happened to it? Where did it go? And maybe more importantly, why should we even care about it today?
Well, the story of Mesopotamia is kind of a roller coaster of rising and falling empires. You have the Sumerians, then the Akkadians, then the Babylonians, one after another. Each one had its time in the sun before it was either conquered or just crumbled from within. It just goes to show how fragile it all was, this constant battle for control of that one precious piece of land.
And eventually, after Babylon fell, the whole thing just stopped. The great cities turned to dust. The desert sand swallowed up the temples. The strange wedge-shaped writing was completely forgotten. The world's very first civilization just faded away, becoming more of a legend than a memory. Its voice went silent.
For thousands of years, that silence was all there was, until archaeologists started to dig. In the 1800s, digging in what is now Iraq, they started finding them, these buried, forgotten cities. And they found thousands and thousands of these clay tablets, and little by little they cracked the code. They figured out the language, and suddenly humanity's first written thoughts were speaking to us again.
And what they found, what we learned, is that Mesopotamia isn't gone at all. Its echoes are everywhere. The very idea of a city, that started there. The idea of writing things down to remember them, that started there. The idea of living under written laws started there. Heck, even the way we measure time, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, that's a direct download from ancient Mesopotamia.
So they left their biggest ideas for us on baked clay. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Thousands of years from now, when some future archaeologist digs up the ruins of our civilization, what are they going to find? When they finally crack the code to our servers and our hard drives, what will our first thoughts say about who we were?